Hope everyone is having a good day so far today. All right. Well, welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, BBB's Learning Lab webinar, which is Lights, Camera, and Growth, TV for Small Businesses, featuring KETV Newswatch 7. I am Jenny Tukeski. I am the Programming and Communications Manager here for the Better Business Bureau Midwest Plains. Just a few quick housekeeping notes for you. Today's webinar is being recorded and it will be able to be used then for future viewing purposes. With that as well, within 24 hours, we will be sending out a follow-up email to you with a link to the webinar, but also all of the presentation materials that are being viewed and going over today. So with that, if you have any questions as well, we ask that you put them in the chat and we will make sure we answer all the questions by the end of the presentation today. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. In today's competitive marketing landscape, television remains a powerful way to build credibility, increase visibility, and make a lasting impression. Beyond advertising, local TV news offers valuable opportunities to share your organization's story. Whether you're launching new initiative, promoting an event, or celebrating a milestone, knowing how and when to connect with the local media can help your message reach a wider audience. In today's session, we'll explore how television advertising can strengthen your marketing strategy and share practical tips for working with local news to gain meaningful exposure. I am pleased to welcome today's presenter, Victoria Holley, a Nightside executive producer with more than a decade of journalism experience. A Nebraska native, Victoria began her television career as a camera operator after graduating from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and has since held nearly every role in the newsroom, from producer and assignment desk editor to digital content editor and executive producer. Her diverse background gives her valuable insight into what makes stories resonate with audiences and how businesses can effectively use television to share their message. Outside of work, Victoria enjoys spending time with her family, attending Renaissance fairs in costume, and paranormal investigating. So, welcome so much, Victoria, and it is all yours.
All right, thank you for having me. That was a little bit about my background. I've really found my niche in news and journalism, and it's been my passion for 10 years now. Um, you kind of heard a little bit about my background. I was a military family, so lived on the East Coast for many years, worked in Wilmington, North Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, before coming back home here. I worked on the assignment desk for a little bit, so I had a lot of experience um, talking with people and setting up stories with law enforcement and nonprofits and people in the community, and then eventually moving to executive producer. So just a little insight into how our newsroom decides what a news story is and the relevance. It's kind of why our audience should care. And we use this phrase that's the news you can use. So we look at different factors of whether it's something that people can use in their daily lives and whether they really need to know, or if it's something that shouldn't be put on the news. So one of the things we look at is impact. Weather is the biggest impact. It's the one thing that people can't avoid or can't tune off. It's something that impacts everyday lives, from going to the grocery store to safety to their homes. So I put a little screenshot from our article on the 4th of July weekend up there. We were getting people ready. Everybody wants to do fireworks. We had severe storms, so that's something that can impact them. We look at timeliness. If it's something happening today, tomorrow, next week, next month. An example would be the federal student loan changes that impacted millions that started. We look at community relevance. How is it making the community better for them or their family? the human interest, emotions really resonate with an audience, and so things that are going to connect with them on that personal level. I put this screenshot up here about these puppies that found a forever home after they were rescued by these three police officers. That's
Real quick, Victoria.
oh yeah.
Sorry. Can you switch to that slide? Sorry.
It should be on this slide. Is it not
No,
showing? Uh, okay. Sorry about that. I don't
you're
know.
good.
It's showing on my screen. Let's see. Is that showing now?
I still just on the first slide.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. Okay. Hold on one second. Let me
There we
figure
go.
out. Okay. That's
Now,
so
sir.
strange.
Yep,
Is it
you're good.
okay? Let me I'm just gonna keep it in this layout then so that way.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yes. So the news you can use, as I was talking about, impact, timeliness, community relevance. I showed a screenshot here of the puppies that were rescued. um, Proximity, is it local? Sometimes it doesn't have to be local. We obviously do a lot of national news, but the bigger stories, the ones that we like to focus on, are the ones that impact people here at home. And is it compelling, visuals and sound? So you see the picture of the adorable puppies there, and that's something that's going to catch people's attention, that they're going to want to know about. So what newsrooms look for when we've kind of identified that a story is a story and whether we should pursue it, is the visual opportunity. What is the story going to look like? We often come across these stories where it seems interesting, but if there's no way to actually show the story, then it makes it hard for our audience to care or to get connected with that story. And so we're always looking for, whether it's photos or videos, some way to tell the story. An interview opportunity. Will someone be willing to talk about that story? Often there's something that people need to know about, whether it's a community event or it's a new policy change. But if nobody's willing to talk about it, then it's hard to really tell that story. And exclusive content. I know this is difficult for some businesses and nonprofits because you want to maximize the news, to be able to share your story and to get it out to everyone so it reaches all platforms. So what you can do sometimes is offer a heads up. We do tend to reach a lot of people, and so having that, we're going to give it to you first, kind of elevates it a little bit. It makes it feel a little special for newsrooms. So just a couple of examples here with the local impact stories that we've done through partnerships. We did this story, Mary Regley did, about a boutique that was raising awareness about mental health. It was called You Are Loved. And then an exclusive story here with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, who gave us kind of the first look about their Canine Bodie, who's this new canine working the courthouse to keep people safe. So those are just a kind of examples of that exclusive story and giving people like a heads up. Once we kind of identify the story, here's kind of where the process it goes. So usually we get a press release that comes into our email, or someone calls us about a news tip or a community event. Our assignment desk is the first person to usually receive that. If it's an email or a calendar or a community event, they'll add it to what's called our planning calendar. It's just where we keep all of our events, our news tips, things we got to follow. We have a morning editorial meeting where we'll discuss different content, breaking news, any pitches from the reporter, any stories we need to follow up, community events. We'll talk about our staffing. And then once we kind of decide on what we're pursuing for the day, our producers begin stacking the newscast. And things change during the day. There's a lot of communication constantly happening about shows and breaking news and different news stories. But generally, once that happens, our reporter and our photographer will then go gather content, and they'll start kind of pursuing the story, trying to find those visuals, trying to find those interviews. We then have an afternoon editorial meeting where we discuss any updates, any changes, maybe the story has changed, if we need to move things around in the newscast, if a story kind of turned out not to be a story. And then after that, it proceeds to where we air the story live on broadcast. So, when is the best time for a business or a nonprofit or a community organizer to reach out? We usually say not longer than a month before. It will get lost kind of in the mix of daily news. We get hundreds of emails, sometimes thousands, depending on what's happening every day. And so sending something longer than a month out can really, it can get lost. We have a lot of eyes on our emails and a lot of people picking up our phone calls, but daily deadlines, everything constantly changing on a day-to-day basis, it just kind of, it gets lost. But we do ask at least a full day before. So planning for the next day usually begins in the afternoon before. The exception is usually if it's a very intensive shoot, if it's a longer format story that we're doing, obviously if it's breaking news. But that's generally where the planning begins, is the afternoon before. Our assignment desk editor kind of takes a look at our staffing for the next day. We'll take a look at what's in our calendar, what people have asked us to cover, and kind of gets an outline for the next day. Obviously, if it's breaking news or if it's something you've just learned about, if it's something that is happening now that was kind of spontaneous, please call our newsroom. I've got the newsroom number there. Same for all media. You can, reach out to them directly through phone. That works usually the best. Somebody is always in the newsroom to pick up. Weekend and holiday coverage, a little bit about how that works. It's limited staffing. So, newsrooms will often have reduced team sizes and limited staff to be able to go and cover things. Standard planning for a weekend happens on a Friday. The exception would be first news, like morning news. Any sort of morning coverage in journalism usually happens throughout the week just because the timing for those live shots is very different. And so we want to give people a chance to plan ahead and make sure that it doesn't disrupt their schedule or if they need to change their schedule. We follow a similar process for weekend and holiday coverage as we do day to day. So usually it starts with an email. If somebody's sending us a news tip, a community event, some story that they would like to pitch us, and then you can follow up with a phone call. Getting the word out. So how to reach out. So email, phone call. The press releases are usually best sent to the general news email, or a news tip. So for us, it's news at ketv.com. That goes to everybody. All of our reporters, our producers, our managers, our talent, everyone will see that. And it's best to include the assignment desk on that. So Mia is our assignment desk manager. She usually works, she's in the office between 6 and 3 p.m. Matt Kirkle is our night side assignment desk editor, and he's usually in the office between 1:30 and 10:30. And so they're the ones who are obviously going to handle that and then take it to our calendar, make sure that they get it on the schedule, and they're the ones who are planning for the next day. So make sure you CC them and then follow up the next day if you'd like with a email. Again, calling the newsroom desk, that's usually the best way to do it. So what newsrooms look for when it comes to an email? I've put together kind of some keywords that we shouldn't use and you should use, and some kind of just reminders of what to include in the email. Words not to put in the subject or headline, press release or community event, it's just too generic. We get, again, hundreds of emails, thousands of emails a week. So you really want to be specific. Tell us what's happening. So an example, company and hand out 5,000 kits on Memorial Day, a new development to bring 500 jobs to Omaha. These are a couple of emails that we received recently. Tomorrow, world's largest swim lesson at the Y. Doctor serving 39th year on College World Series medical team. That's really going to stand out to us, and it tells you what kind of you're sharing with us and what you're looking for. Other keywords to include in the headline, RSVP deadline. If it's something where you need to know how many people are going to be there beforehand, please highlight that for us. So that way we can make sure to set that deadline for ourselves to let you know, yes, we're going to be there. No, we can't make it. Video opportunity, interview opportunity. As I mentioned, those are two of the big things we look for when telling a story. And it's always good to highlight those in your emails. What to include in the body, who, what, when, where, why. So tell us what's happening, who's going to be there, when it takes place, where it takes place, why. If there is a media contact, please include that, the email and the cell phone. And then being reachable is key. So usually that media contact is the first person we reach out to when pursuing a story. On the weekends, usually when we find an event, I'll let that media contact know that, hey, we're going to be there. Can you share a point of contact? And that way I can pass that along to our photographer so they know who to look for when they get on the scene. And then if something happens, who to call. And so that's really key. If we can't reach somebody about a story and there's a question or there's confusion, it may not get covered then. So that's really key of having somebody in that email who's going to be able to pick up, even if it's not you, if you're going to be out of town or you're not going to be at the event, identify somebody who we can reach to if there's any questions, or so that way we know who to look for. Parking information. We all know how construction is in Omaha. There's a lot of it going on right now. So if there is an issue with parking or if there's construction, that's really helpful for our crews to know beforehand. Again, any B-roll opportunities, any video or photos that you're going to send with us about this event, and then interview locations if it's not at the event or at the business or at the nonprofit. If it's somewhere else, let us know so we can make sure we get there as well. Oh, and I don't know why there's some random text on the side, so I apologize for that. But leverage relationships with talent. This is hugely important in our newsroom. Our reporters are the connection between the newsroom and the community. Same with our talent, our anchors. They are the connection. They're often the first people to hear about things happening in the community. They're the ones to bring us news that is happening in the community, stories we need to cover, events, businesses, nonprofit, community efforts that we need to highlight, problems, issues. So if you do a story with the reporter, maintain that relationship because you never know when it's going to come into play later down on the road. And just build that rapport with them, whether it's, once a month, checking in to let them know, here's what's new at our small business. Here's what's new at this nonprofit. Here's the work that we got going on. Just so that we maintain that relationship and it lasts throughout the years. And I'll give you an example here. This was a story that kind of we followed throughout the years. Julie Cornell did this story about a Nebraska City family who was planning to farm salmon each year. And through that relationship, we later learned that there had been a fire and they were worried that it was going to be beyond repair. And so we did the story in 2024 about kind of that devastation to this business. And then in 2026, we learned their next steps in their recovery. And so we were able to follow up. And so this was a relationship that just really continued throughout the years. It was an impactful story. It was an emotional story. And so really leverage those relationships you build with our crews. And it doesn't just have to be reporters either. If you talk to our assignment desk manager every day, if you've talked to one of our executive producers during the day or on our morning shift, really maintain those relationships and nurture them so that way we can help tell your story later on down the road. And then just a couple of common mistakes, advertising instead of story. We are not the advertisers. That is a different department. So we're not here to sell your business or your product or your store or your service. We're here to tell stories. So we really want to know the unique story that no one has heard before, or the work you're doing in the community, or the problem that you want to get highlighted. That's what we're looking for. Missing contact information. I talked about that a lot, about being reachable and knowing who to contact if there's an issue, if we need to reach back out to you about the story at all. No visuals. Again, visuals, it's all about visuals and interviews. Oftentimes people are looking up at the TV and they're not listening. So something that's going to catch their eyes right away is going to make all the difference in telling your business, your nonprofit story. And then just following up too much. That email and that follow up phone call will usually be enough. Um, Things are constantly changing in the newsroom. Our reporters are constantly making calls. There's always breaking news. There's always something going on. And so often we don't have the time to reach back out to every single person that sends us an email and say, hey, we're not going to make it. No, we're not. Yes, we're going to be there. And so following up too much just kind of bogs down the system. And so we just ask that you send that email, you follow up with a phone call, and then if we are able to do the story, go to the event, we'll reach back out to you. That's usually how it works. And that is the end of my presentation. So, does anyone have any questions? Sorry, I know I speak fast, so.
You're good. Thank you so much, Victoria. Um, I guess one question I have is what
Mhm.
trends do you see shaping the future for local television in itself with news coverage?
The biggest trend we're seeing right now with local news coverage is the transition from just linear TV to social media. So, obviously, social media has grown exponentially in the last decade. And so, a lot of people are really looking for their news and their information about their community online on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, X. And so the biggest trend I see is newsrooms and journalists in general having to adapt to that change. And so we're really finding unique ways to get to our audience online and on social media while also still bringing news to the TV newsrooms that we've always to the households that we've always brought them to. So that I think is the biggest change, and finding new ways to utilize social media to bring people back to TV. I think that's just been the biggest trend. And so I know a lot of businesses and nonprofits also use social media. So finding that partnership where we can both kind of use social media to reach the audience that they're trying to reach and that we are trying to reach.
Perfect. With streaming services and everything that are out there now,
Mhm.
um, and the way that it's changing the views and habits that people have, how has television evolved over the past, not even just decade, but the past even 5 years?
So it's really evolved to be focused more on catching people's attention fast and um, making sure that they're hooked in within the first few minutes. Because newsrooms and journalists in the past, to be able to tell a story, you really relied heavily on your talent. You relied heavily on kind of graphics, and you expected somebody to start watching your news and finish watching throughout the news program, because that's what people did before internet and social media, and before the relevance of all these streaming. People would sit down, households, families would sit down, and they would watch TV together, and news was often part of that. But now people are so busy. It's kind of a go, go, go. And so they're really only catching news, when they're getting kids ready for school or on their phone when they're scrolling. And so the biggest change has been adapting to that kind of shift in how long people are watching TV and um, kind of the medium that they're getting it on. And so we're finding new ways to tell people, hey, you should watch this, keep watching, because it's important to you, it's important to your family. And so it's really the style of how we do that, in who we're talking to and what we're showing on air. The visuals in the interviews I talked about are extremely important in that, just because people are often consuming news in shorter amounts nowadays. And so I think that's the biggest shift I've kind of seen. Um, and it's been a challenge for a lot of newsrooms. So it's something that we're constantly adapting and constantly talking about. And there's a lot of important things that people need to know, and so we just really have to find new ways to make people pay attention.
Got it. If you could leave business owners and nonprofit leaders with one piece of advice about using television to tell their story and grow and let people even know more so about their organization, what would it be?
I think it would just be, you know, be be open and be communicative about your business. Um, we have this phrase, "We don't know what we don't know," in the newsroom that we use a lot. So if there is a story, if somebody has been working at your nonprofit, helping in the community, working at your small business for, 25, 50 years, and you want to highlight the work that they've done and how they've helped your business grow, share that with us. We don't know what we don't know. So, we want to be able to tell those stories, and we want to be able to highlight businesses, and we want to be able to highlight nonprofits. But the way that breaking news often happens and the demand that it takes, we don't always have the time to go out and find your business or find your nonprofit. And so, just, tell us when you have, something happening. Tell us when you have a unique story. Feel free to reach out, call us. Just make that initiative. I will say there are a lot of times, and this often happens with government agencies or law enforcement, when they'll share something that happened 3 days ago or a week ago. And so, just giving us that early notice about something that's happening, or a story that you want to share, really helps to get that out for not just us and our audience, but for you. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice is just, reach out to us, take that initiative to start that communication first.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Victoria, for joining us today and for educating us the insights of being on TV and what it takes to get our stories told on TV and the power and the tools that it takes to be able to accomplish all of that. So thank you so much for everything. To everyone else, too, thank you for joining us today and taking time out of your day to be a part of this conversation. We hope that you're walking away feeling a little inspired and encouraged to get those stories out about not only your organization and your business, but the people behind it as well, like Victoria just talked about, those special people that make your business keep going every day. As a reminder, we will be sending out that email to you within 24 hours. Follow up with a link to the webinar, the presentation materials that she gave today, as well as I will include that email, the contact emails directly to be able to email and the phone numbers to contact if you have those stories to tell. Also in the email, there'll be a link to a short survey giving us your feedback of not only today, and the webinar that we're on right now, but also in regards to feedback of what you would like to see in the Learning Lab, not just for your business, but what other businesses can benefit from as well too. So with that, again, we thank everybody. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon and day, and we hope to see you soon. Take care.